Daniel Cole sat alone at the corner booth of a small-town steakhouse, dressed in an old jacket that didn't fit his broad shoulders. To the other diners, he looked like a man who'd been through too many storms. Quiet, tired, maybe a trucker passing through. No one could have guessed he was worth more than $100 million. The waitress Emily approached with an easy smile. She looked young, no more than 25, her blonde hair tied back, a notepad in her hand. "Steak? Medium rare, right?" she asked, already writing it down. Daniel nodded. He liked people who didn't waste time with chatter. When she returned with his plate, she placed it gently in front of him. Then, with a swift motion so subtle it almost escaped him, she slipped a folded piece of paper under his glass of water. Daniel frowned. He waited until she walked away, then pulled the note free. 5 words. That's all it took to freeze him. "I know who you are." His pulse kicked. Nobody here should know his name, let alone his past. He had gone to great lengths to bury Daniel Cole, the billionaire with a scandalous divorce, the man the tabloids once devoured. And yet this young waitress had just ripped open the very disguise he lived under. Daniel's hand trembled as he flipped the paper over. Another line was scrawled in quick handwriting. "And I know about Rebecca." Daniel stared at the words again, his chest tightening as if the letters themselves carried weight. "I know who you are, and I know about Rebecca." He folded the note once, twice, then pressed it flat under his palm as if smothering a fire before it spread. But the flames were already inside him. For years he had lived like a shadow, moving from city to city, never staying too long, never letting anyone look too closely. To the world, Daniel Cole was a scandal long forgotten, a billionaire who had disappeared after a vicious divorce. To his neighbors here, he was just Dan, the quiet man renting a cabin on the outskirts of town. But this waitress, this young woman with steady eyes and a sharp smile, she had peeled back his mask with a scrap of paper. When Emily returned to refill his glass, Daniel's voice was low. "Why did you give me this?" She didn't flinch. Her eyes flicked to the folded note still trapped beneath his hand. "You read it?" "Yes." His tone was tight. "Now tell me why." Emily leaned in, close enough that he could smell the faint citrus of her perfume. "Because secrets don't stay buried forever, Mr. Cole." The name hit him like a blow. No one here should have known it. Before he could respond, another customer waved her over. She straightened, her professional smile snapping back in place, and walked away without another word. Daniel sat frozen, fork untouched, steak cooling. Later that night, he drove back to his cabin in silence, headlights cutting through the pine trees. The note lay on the passenger seat, daring him to read it again. His hands gripped the wheel until his knuckles ached. Rebecca. Even hearing her name in his head was enough to sour his stomach. His ex-wife had nearly destroyed him. The divorce had been brutal, tabloids screaming about betrayal, money, and lies. Daniel had signed away millions just to make her go away. But she hadn't gone. She had lingered like smoke, feeding rumors, taking interviews, twisting the story until the public saw Daniel as a villain. He had chosen exile, disappeared, and for years the silence had been his only refuge. So how did this waitress know? The next morning, Daniel returned to the diner. The place smelled of bacon grease and burnt coffee, the kind of scent that clung to the walls. He slid into the same booth. Emily appeared almost immediately, as if she had been waiting. "Coffee? Please," he muttered. She poured, then set the pot down, folding her arms. "You want answers?" "Yes," Daniel said. His voice was even, but his pulse thudded. "Start talking." Emily glanced around. The other servers were busy. The manager was in the back. For a moment, it was just the two of them, the hum of conversation fading into background static. "I know about Rebecca because my brother worked for her," she said quietly. "A few years back, he was young, stupid, In over his head. She used him. Daniel's brow furrowed. Your brother? Liam, she said. Her lips tightened. He thought he was just running errands, picking up things for her. But he overheard things, ugly things, lies she told, people she paid off. She ruined you, Mr. Cole, and she's not done. Daniel leaned forward, voice sharp. Why tell me this now? Why slip me that note instead of coming straight to me? Emily's gaze didn't waver. Because I had to be sure you were still the man my brother described, a man who lost everything because someone else wanted more. Silence stretched between them. Her words had teeth. Daniel exhaled slowly. What does she want now? Emily shook her head. I don't know, but Liam thinks she's planning something big. He's scared. He wanted to come to you, but he owes money. Bad people. He didn't want to drag you into it. Daniel almost laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. Too late for that. That evening, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat by the cabin window, watching rain slide down the glass, the note lying on the table beside him. Rebecca. Her shadow stretched across his life once again. He had given up his fortune to be rid of her. He had disappeared into the cracks of America, hoping she would lose interest. But if Emily was telling the truth, Rebecca was circling back. And worse. She had leverage. Daniel picked up the note, staring at the words until they blurred. Emily had been right about one thing. Secrets never stayed buried, and his past had just been unearthed by a waitress in a diner. But what unsettled him most wasn't the note itself. It was the way Emily had looked at him, calm, unafraid, as if she knew more than she was letting on. And Daniel hated not knowing what game he had just been pulled into. The next morning, Daniel drove into town with one purpose: to learn everything he could about Emily Ross. He wasn't reckless. Years of hiding had made him cautious, so he didn't walk into the diner again. Instead, he parked across the street in his beat-up Ford and watched. Emily moved quickly between tables, smiling at customers, balancing plates like she'd been doing this job her whole life. To anyone else, she was just another small-town waitress. But Daniel knew better. She had dropped his real name into conversation without hesitation. That made her dangerous. He reached for his phone, thumb hovering over a number he hadn't dialed in months. Harris, his lawyer. The only man who knew where Daniel was. The only one he still trusted. When Harris answered, his voice was dry and steady, as always. Daniel, to what do I owe the honor? I think Rebecca's sniffing around again, Daniel said. A pause. What makes you say that? Daniel glanced at the diner window. Emily was laughing with a customer, but her eyes flicked to the street. She saw him. She knew he was watching. Because someone just handed me a note, a waitress. She knew my name, and she mentioned Rebecca. Careful, Harris said, voice sharp now. If she knows about Rebecca, she knows too much. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's what I'm afraid of. That night, Emily found him first. He had been sitting on the porch of his cabin, the woods dark and silent around him, when a pair of headlights cut through the trees. A small sedan pulled up. Emily stepped out, her jacket pulled tight against the cold. Daniel didn't move. You've got nerve showing up here. Emily didn't flinch. She walked closer, the gravel crunching under her shoes. You're not easy to find, but you need to hear me out. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. I'm listening. My brother Liam. She hesitated, as if testing how much to reveal. He used to run errands for Rebecca, pick up envelopes, deliver packages. He thought it was nothing. But one night, he overheard a phone call. She was laughing about you, saying she'd burned you to the ground and you never even saw it coming. Daniel's stomach turned. He could picture it, the smirk on Rebecca's face, the way she loved twisting the knife. Emily went on. Liam told me everything. He thought maybe if you knew, you could fight back. But then he got into trouble. Gambling. Debt. Rebecca found out. She offered him a deal. Stay quiet, or she'd let the people he owed money to eat him alive. Daniel's voice was cold. And now? Now she's planning something new. Emily's hands trembled, but her eyes held steady. She hasn't forgotten you, Mr. Cole. She wants more. Daniel stared at her, his mind spinning. He wanted to dismiss her, to send her away. But something in her tone, raw, urgent, stopped him. What exactly does she want? He asked. Emily shook her head. Liam doesn't know. But whatever it is, it's big. Bigger than before. And if she drags your name back into the light, you won't be able to hide anymore. Daniel slept little that night. He dreamt of Rebecca, the sharp angles of her face, the way her laughter echoed in rooms even after she'd left. She had been brilliant, ruthless, intoxicating. She had also been poison. When he woke, the decision was made. He couldn't ignore this. He called Harris again. I need you to dig, Daniel said. Find out what Rebecca's been doing these past 6 months, who she's meeting with, where she's getting her money. Harris's sigh crackled through the phone. You sure you want to stir this up? You've been safe, Daniel. Invisible. Safe doesn't last, Daniel muttered. Not when Rebecca's involved. 2 days later, Daniel walked back into the diner. Emily froze when she saw him. She was carrying a tray of drinks, but her hands tightened around the glasses. Sit, Daniel said quietly when she reached his booth. She slid the drinks onto another table, then came over, her eyes wary. You made your choice then? I'm not sure what choice that is, Daniel replied, but I want to meet your brother. Emily's breath caught. That's not a good idea. Why? Because he's scared and desperate, and the men he owes money to don't ask twice. Daniel leaned forward. If he knows what Rebecca's planning, I need to hear it. Her jaw tightened. She looked like she wanted to refuse, but something in his expression must have convinced her. Finally, she nodded. Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you. That evening, Emily drove him to a shabby apartment complex on the edge of town. The paint was peeling. The stairwells smelled of mildew. She knocked on a door. After a long pause, it opened a crack. A young man stood there, skinny, eyes darting, his dark hair falling into his face. Liam, Emily said softly. It's okay. He's with me. Liam's gaze snapped to Daniel. His face paled. You're him. Daniel's voice was steady. I'm whoever you think I am, but right now I just want to know what Rebecca is planning. Liam hesitated, then pulled them inside. The apartment was a mess. Empty beer bottles, unpaid bills scattered across the counter. She's making moves again, Liam whispered. Big ones. She's talking to lawyers, reporters. She said she's going to bring you back into the spotlight. She's got something. Proof, or at least she says she does, something that'll ruin you for good. Daniel's blood ran cold. Proof of what? I don't know, Liam admitted, his voice shaking. But she's confident. And when Rebecca's confident, it's because she already set the trap. Emily touched Daniel's arm gently. That's why I gave you the note. Because whatever she's planning, you won't see it coming until it's too late. Daniel sat in silence, the weight of her words pressing down on him. For years, he had lived like a ghost. Now the past had found him, and it wore Rebecca's face. But this time, he wasn't sure hiding would be enough. And he wasn't sure Emily Ross was telling him the whole truth. The drive back from Liam's apartment was silent. Rain streaked across the windshield as Emily kept her eyes fixed on the road. Daniel sat stiff in the passenger seat, his mind turning over every word Liam had spoken. Rebecca, lawyers, reporters, proof. She was setting the stage. That much was clear. But what unsettled him more wasn't Liam's fear. It was Emily. She had steered him into this, placed the note in his hand, dragged him into her brother's debt and danger. Why? At a stoplight, Daniel broke the silence. How much does your brother owe? Emily's fingers tightened on the wheel. Too much. Numbers, Emily, not riddles. She hesitated. 20,000. Maybe more. Daniel let out a low whistle. That's not pocket change. Who does he owe it to? Her jaw clenched. People you don't want to meet. People Rebecca knows? She didn't answer right away. The light turned green. She pressed the gas. Daniel studied her profile. Strong jaw, lips pressed tight, eyes hardened by something far older than her years. You slipped me that note for a reason, he said, but you've told me just enough to keep me curious. What's the real story, Emily? Why me? Finally, she looked at him, her voice low. Because you're the only person Rebecca's afraid of. Back at the cabin, Daniel poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Emily sat across from him at the small wooden table, her coat draped over the chair. She wants to ruin me, he said. Fine. She's been trying for years. But you don't go to the trouble of dragging in a waitress and her brother unless there's something more. Emily's hands wrapped around the glass, though she didn't drink. It's not just about you. Rebecca's been meeting with investors, people with power. She's telling them she has leverage. If she pulls it off, it's not just your reputation. It's control, money, influence. Daniel leaned back, the chair creaking under his weight. And your brother just happened to overhear all this? Her eyes flashed. Don't do that. Do what? Act like I'm lying. Daniel held her gaze. Years of boardrooms and backstabbing deals had trained him to spot cracks in a story. Emily's words were sharp, but her eyes flicked away when pressed. That told him more than anything she said aloud. Emily, he said slowly, if you're keeping something from me, I need to know. Because Rebecca doesn't leave survivors. If you're in this game, you're already marked. She swallowed hard. I've already lost too much. I'm not losing Liam, too. The next afternoon, Daniel received a call from Harris. The lawyer's voice was tense. I've found something, Harris said. Rebecca's been funneling money through shell companies, offshore accounts, dummy corporations. She's building a war chest. For what? Not sure, but she's been in touch with a tabloid journalist, the same one who broke your divorce story years ago. Daniel's stomach tightened. He remembered the man well. Sharp smile, cruel eyes, always twisting words into daggers. If she's going back to him, Harris continued, she's preparing to detonate something. My advice? Leave town. Again. Disappear before she strikes. Daniel glanced toward Emily, who was sitting on the porch steps outside, smoking a cigarette she had bummed off him. Her shoulders were tense, her face pale in the fading light. Running. That was Harris's solution, but Daniel was tired of running. No, Daniel said firmly. Not this time. That evening, Emily drove him to meet Liam again. The boy looked worse. Paler, jittery, eyes darting toward the window, as if expecting men to break down the door. She knows, Liam whispered, pacing the tiny living room. Rebecca knows I talked to you. She sent someone. Who? Daniel asked. A man in a suit. Said he worked for her lawyers. But it felt wrong. Like he wasn't there to talk. He was there to threaten. Emily touched her brother's arm. Liam, calm down. I can't. Liam's voice cracked. She'll kill me, Emily, or worse, she'll use me to get to him. His eyes flicked to Daniel. You. She'll use me to destroy you. Daniel stayed calm, his voice steady. Then we get ahead of her. What exactly did you overhear? Liam stopped pacing. He ran a hand through his hair, breathing hard. She said she has documents, something about a fund, hidden accounts in your name. She wants to prove you've been hiding money overseas. Daniel froze. That's not possible. Isn't it? Emily asked quietly. He turned sharply to her. Number, I never... He cut himself off, fury flashing in his eyes. She forged it. She's done it before, twisting the truth, planting stories. Now she's fabricating evidence. Emily studied him, her expression unreadable. Then we have to prove it's fake before she goes public. Back at the cabin, long after Emily and Liam had left, Daniel sat in the dark with a glass of whiskey, staring at the fire. Rebecca was smart. Too smart. If she claimed to have documents, they would look real. She had money, lawyers, contacts in high places. And if she convinced the press he was laundering money, he wouldn't just be ruined, he could be indicted. But what gnawed at him most wasn't Rebecca's power. It was Emily. She knew too much. She spoke with certainty about Rebecca's moves, as if she were closer to the storm than she admitted. And every time he asked a direct question, she dodged, deflected, or changed the subject. Daniel rubbed his temples, exhaustion pressing down on him. He wanted to trust her, but trust was a luxury he no longer believed in. And yet, he could still see the fear in Liam's eyes, the desperation in Emily's voice. If they were lying, they were damn good at it. Daniel poured another drink, his jaw set. Whether Emily was ally or pawn, one thing was clear. Rebecca was coming for him again. And this time, she wasn't playing alone. Daniel knew it was only a matter of time before she found him. He just didn't expect it to happen so soon. 3 nights after meeting Liam, Daniel walked into the diner for his usual late dinner. The air smelled of fried food and cheap coffee. But the moment he stepped through the door, the atmosphere changed. Conversations faltered, heads turned, because Rebecca Cole was sitting in his booth. She hadn't aged a day in his memory, still the same sharp cheekbones, the perfect hair, the eyes that could slice through steel. Dressed in a tailored black coat, she looked wildly out of place in the small-town diner, like a queen slumming in the mud. And she was smiling, the kind of smile that once charmed him, before he learned it hid teeth. "Hello, Daniel," she purred. "Long time?" Emily froze behind the counter, her knuckles white around a coffee pot. Daniel felt the room shrink around him, every nerve screaming. But he forced his steps steady as he approached the table. "You shouldn't be here," he said flatly. Rebecca's smile widened. "And yet, here I am." He didn't sit. "What do you want?" "Oh, Daniel, always so suspicious." She tilted her head, eyes glittering. "Can't a woman have dinner with her ex-husband?" "No," he said. Her laugh was soft, musical, infuriating. "Fine. Straight to business. I know you've been hiding. I know you think you erased yourself, but I've found you. Again. And this time..." She leaned forward. "This time you won't escape." Emily appeared suddenly, setting down a glass of water in front of Rebecca. Her voice was tight. "You're disturbing my customers." Rebecca didn't even look at her. "Run along, sweetheart. This is grown-up talk." Emily's jaw clenched, but she walked away. Daniel kept his voice even. "What's your angle, Rebecca?" She tapped her fingernails against the table, slow and deliberate. "Simple. You give me what I want, and I won't ruin you." Daniel almost laughed. "You already tried that. You drained me in the divorce. What's left to take?" "Oh, Daniel," her eyes gleamed. "You think you're clever. But I know about the accounts, the offshore money, the investments you hid." "Lies," he snapped. "Perhaps. But lies can be dressed as truth, especially when I have paperwork to prove it." She slid a slim folder across the table. "Go ahead. Take a look." Daniel didn't touch it. "Forged." Rebecca shrugged. "Maybe. But do you think the world cares about truth? Number, they care about headlines. And the headline will be "Disgraced Billionaire Exposed for Hiding Millions." You'll be crucified all over again. And this time, there won't be anything left to crawl back to. The folder sat like a live grenade between them. Daniel forced himself not to reach for it, not to show weakness. "What do you want?" he asked again. Her smile returned, sharper now. "I want you to come back." Daniel blinked. "Back? To me?" The words hung in the air, absurd and chilling. Rebecca leaned closer. "We were unstoppable once, Daniel. We could be again. The world loves power couples. And if you resist?" She tapped the folder. "Then I bury you." For a moment, Daniel simply stared. Then he stepped back from the booth. "Enjoy your dinner," he said coldly. "It'll be the last meal we share." He turned and walked out, his heart hammering. Emily followed him outside minutes later, breathless. "She's insane. Did you see—" "I saw," Daniel cut her off. His voice was tight, controlled. "She hasn't changed. She never will." "She has documents," Emily insisted. "If she makes them public—" "They're fake," Daniel snapped. Then softer. "They have to be." Emily searched his face. "Are you sure?" Daniel didn't answer, because for the first time a sliver of doubt crept in. What if Rebecca really did have something? What if she had found a way to twist the truth into a weapon too sharp for him to deflect? That night, Daniel called Harris again. "She's here," he said. Harris cursed softly on the other end. "Rebecca?" "Yes. She handed me documents. Claims I've been hiding money offshore." "Don't touch them," Harris warned. "If you take possession, she can spin it as an admission. Let me look. I'll find the cracks." Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose. "She wants me back. Can you believe that?" Harris was silent for a moment. "Be careful. If she wants you close again, it's not because she loves you. It's because she wants to control you." Daniel exhaled slowly. "I know." 2 days later, Rebecca made her next move. Daniel returned to his cabin to find a sleek black car parked out front. Rebecca was waiting on his porch, sipping from a travel mug as if she owned the place. "You're trespassing," he said coldly. "Don't be dramatic," she replied, rising gracefully. "I wanted to see how you're living. Rustic, quaint, almost charming." He crossed his arms. "Say what you came to say." Rebecca's smile was razor sharp. "You can fight me, Daniel. Call your lawyer, run your little errands. But we both know how this ends. I will win. I always do." "And if I don't play?" She stepped close enough that he could feel her breath. "Then I burn you to the ground, again." For a moment they stood in silence, the woods around them heavy with rain. Then she turned, heels clicking on the wooden steps, and slid back into her car. The engine roared, gravel sprayed. She was gone. Daniel stood on the porch long after the taillights vanished. Rebecca was back in his life, and she wasn't bluffing. But what gnawed at him most wasn't her threat. It was the way Emily had watched, silent from the edge of the trees, her face pale, her eyes unreadable, and Daniel couldn't shake the question that haunted him now. Whose side was Emily Ross really on? Daniel's chest tightened as Emily's eyes searched his. They were standing in the dim parking lot behind the restaurant, the quiet hum of traffic in the distance. His pulse was loud in his ears. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. "What do you mean you know about her?" he asked, his voice sharper than he intended. Emily didn't flinch. "I mean I've seen her, Rebecca, at the hospital. She's my mother's nurse." Daniel blinked. "Your mother's nurse?" "Yes." Emily's tone hardened. "Don't act surprised. I've seen the way Rebecca talks about you. She pretends like you're just some shadow in her past, but I can tell she's still haunted. The scandals, the money, the way everything exploded in her life because of you." Daniel felt a deep ache stir. Rebecca. Even hearing her name still cut him raw. He had buried those memories, forced himself to believe the past belonged to another man. But Emily's words tore the coffin open. "You think you know everything?" Daniel said, his jaw clenched. "You don't know what really happened." Emily's eyes flashed. "Then tell me." He turned away, pressing his hand to his temple. The cool night air bit at his skin. Rebecca and I, we were married. Once. And I ruined her life. Emily folded her arms. She didn't exactly paint you as a saint. I don't expect her to. Daniel's voice cracked. I was careless. I thought money could fix everything. When the tabloids dug into us, when they found her father's debts, her family's secrets, I let them drag her name through the mud. I didn't protect her. That's why she left. Emily's expression softened for the first time. She looked less like an interrogator and more like a girl trying to fit broken pieces together. She said you disappeared, that you chose to walk away instead of fight for her. Daniel's chest ached. She's right. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the buzz of a neon sign nearby. Finally, Emily asked, So why are you here? Hiding in this town, eating steak like some regular guy? What are you running from? Daniel let out a heavy breath. From myself. Before Emily could respond, a voice cut through the darkness. Daniel? Both their heads snapped toward the sound. A woman's silhouette appeared at the edge of the lot, framed by the faint glow of a street lamp. Daniel froze. Rebecca. Her presence was like a blow to the chest. After all these years, she still carried herself with quiet grace, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes sharp as they locked on his. She looked older, stronger, but unmistakably the same woman he had once vowed to protect. Emily's eyes darted between them. Mom's right. You are here. Daniel's mind spun. Wait, your mother? Rebecca stepped forward, her gaze fixed on him. Emily, go inside. Emily hesitated. But now, Rebecca said, her voice firm, carrying a weight of authority. Emily's lips pressed into a thin line, but she obeyed, disappearing back into the restaurant. Daniel and Rebecca stood alone. The night felt charged, thick with old wounds and unspoken words. You shouldn't be here, Rebecca said quietly. Daniel swallowed hard. I didn't know you were in this town. I didn't know Emily was your daughter. Her eyes narrowed. Lies never suited you, Daniel. You always think you can talk your way out of anything, but not with me, not anymore. His throat tightened. I didn't come looking for you. I swear. I came here because I wanted to disappear. Rebecca's lips curved into a bitter smile. Disappear? You? The man who loved the spotlight more than air? The man who let me drown while he stood there with the cameras flashing? Daniel's stomach turned. Rebecca, please. She raised a hand. Number, you don't get to plead. You left me with ashes. You left me with debts and rumors and a daughter to raise while you ran off with your fortune intact. Her words were daggers. Daughter, he whispered. Rebecca stiffened, realizing what she'd let slip. Daniel's heart pounded in his ears. Emily, she's not just your daughter, is she? Rebecca's silence was louder than any answer. His voice cracked. She's mine, too. Rebecca's jaw tightened. Her eyes glistened, but she refused to let tears fall. You don't get to claim her now. You weren't there. You don't know what it was like, and she doesn't need you. Daniel staggered back as if the ground had shifted under him. Emily, his daughter, the waitress who had slipped him that note, the girl with fire in her eyes and suspicion in her voice. The weight of lost years pressed down on him. He had missed it all, the first steps, the birthdays, the scraped knees, the late-night talks. He had been a ghost while Rebecca carried the burden alone. I didn't know, Daniel whispered. His voice was raw, broken. Rebecca's tone was cold. That's exactly the problem. You never cared enough to find out. A car passed on the street, its headlights cutting through the tension. Daniel's face was pale, his hands trembling. I care now, he said, desperation seeping through. I want to know her. I want to make it right. Rebecca shook her head. It's too late. She turned to walk away, her figure swallowed by the darkness. Daniel stood frozen, his body heavy with regret. And then Emily's voice echoed from the restaurant door, sharp and accusing. Too late for what? Both Daniel and Rebecca froze. Emily stood in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide. She had heard everything. Daniel sat in his penthouse apartment, staring out at the city lights that flickered like restless stars. He hadn't slept in 3 days. The note, Emily's revelations, Rebecca's ghost, every thread tangled tighter, choking him. He poured a glass of bourbon but barely touched it. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then answered. "Mr. Cole," a woman's voice said, calm, sharp. "You're running out of time." His stomach dropped. "Who is this?" Silence for a beat. Then, "Meet me tomorrow. Noon. Same steakhouse. Come alone, or everyone learns the truth about Rebecca." The line went dead. Noon the next day, Daniel walked into the steakhouse, heart pounding. He'd half expected Emily, but instead, a different woman sat in the corner booth, older, late 30s, dressed in black with an icy elegance. She motioned him over. "Sit." Daniel slid in across from her. "You've got 30 seconds. Who the hell are you?" The woman leaned forward. Her eyes didn't blink. "Rebecca's sister." The words hit like a freight train. Rebecca's sister. Daniel's pulse roared in his ears. Rebecca had been an only child, or so he thought. "That's impossible," she smirked. "You don't know as much as you think. Rebecca hid things, secrets you never uncovered, and I've been waiting a long time to clean up her mess." Daniel forced his breathing steady. "Why now? Why send Emily after me? Why threaten me? Because you've hidden, too. You think you walked away free. But Rebecca's death wasn't an accident, and you—" She tapped the table with a perfectly manicured nail. "You know exactly what I mean." Daniel's throat went dry. "If you're suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting." She cut him off, voice like a blade. "I'm telling you, Rebecca's blood is on your hands." He slammed his palm on the table, startling the other diners. "That's a lie." But even as he said it, guilt flooded him. Memories clawed their way back. The last argument, Rebecca's tearful face, the way she ran out into the rain that night, the screech of tires, the phone call an hour later. Rebecca had died in a crash. But had he driven her to it? The woman smiled as if reading his thoughts. "You killed her spirit long before her body broke." Daniel's chest tightened. "What do you want?" Her smile faded. "The truth, publicly, or I'll deliver it myself." That night, Daniel drove aimlessly through the city, past neon diners and shuttered shops. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. Every street corner seemed haunted by Rebecca's face. When he finally returned home, Emily was waiting by the door. She looked pale, eyes wide. "She came to see me," Emily whispered. "Rebecca's sister, she offered me money to disappear, said if I didn't, I'd regret it." Daniel grabbed her arms. "Did you take it?" Emily shook her head violently. "Number, I don't care about her money. But Daniel, she knows everything, things even I didn't." Daniel's mind raced. If this woman really was Rebecca's sister, she could destroy them both. But something felt off. Too convenient. Too rehearsed. "What if she's lying?" he asked. Emily hesitated. "Then why do her words cut so deep?" The next morning, Daniel dug into Rebecca's past. He called old friends, business partners, anyone who might know. Piece by piece, fragments emerged. A childhood Rebecca never spoke of, a foster system, records sealed, then vanished. But one file remained. A name? Catherine Hale, Rebecca's sister. Daniel's blood ran cold. She was real. But why had Rebecca hidden her? And why was Catherine resurfacing now after all these years? When Daniel confronted Emily with the file, she went silent. Then, slowly, she admitted, "She's not lying. Catherine came to me weeks ago, before you ever walked into the diner. She told me to get close to you, to gain your trust. She wanted me to drag you out. Daniel felt the floor tilt beneath him. So the note, the steakhouse, everything. Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. I never wanted to hurt you, but Catherine, she promised answers about Rebecca, and I thought maybe you deserved to face them. Daniel staggered back, fury boiling. So you've been playing me this whole time? Emily shook her head, desperate. No, it's not like that. I care about you, Daniel. I do. But Catherine, she's dangerous. She's not just Rebecca's sister. She has her own agenda. She wants to tear you apart. His laugh was hollow. Congratulations. She's winning. But even as he said it, Daniel saw the torment in Emily's face. She hadn't chosen this lightly. She was caught between two storms, loyalty to Rebecca's memory and the fragile bond she'd formed with him. Still, betrayal was betrayal, and Daniel couldn't forgive it. Not yet. 2 nights later, Daniel returned to the steakhouse. Catherine was already there, sipping wine like a queen waiting for her subject. You've had time to think, she said coolly. Are you ready to confess? Daniel slid into the booth, eyes burning. You've been pulling strings for too long. Emily, the lies, the threats. But I'm done playing your game. Catherine arched an eyebrow. And what will you do instead? Daniel leaned in close, voice low, trembling with rage. I'll tell you what I should have told Rebecca years ago. The truth. All of it. And when I do, you'll regret ever stepping into my life. Catherine's smile was slow, poisonous. Oh, Daniel, you have no idea how much truth can cost. As she spoke, she slid a small envelope across the table. Inside, a single photo. Daniel froze. His blood turned to ice. The picture showed Rebecca, alive. The storm outside had passed by the time Daniel and Emily walked out of the diner together. The night air smelled clean, the asphalt still glistening from rain. For the first time in years, Daniel wasn't hiding behind an alias, a disguise, or silence. He'd told his truth. He'd heard hers. And yet the weight on his chest hadn't lifted. If anything, it pressed harder. Emily walked beside him, her hands stuffed in the pockets of her thin jacket. So, what now? She asked quietly. Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked down the empty street, the glow of streetlights stretching into the distance like a road he wasn't sure he wanted to take. I don't know, he admitted finally. For years, I thought the only way to survive was to disappear. Pretend Daniel Cole didn't exist, but you... He glanced at her. You dragged him back. Emily gave a faint smile. Sorry about that. He shook his head. Don't be. Maybe I needed it. But just as he said the words, his phone buzzed in his pocket. The screen lit up with a single name that made his throat tighten. Rebecca, Emily noticed. Are you going to answer? Daniel stared at the phone until it stopped ringing. The silence after was louder than thunder. No, he whispered. Why not? Because if I hear her voice, I'll remember everything I lost, and I'm not sure I can carry that again. Emily stopped walking. Her eyes searched his face. Daniel, you can't keep running forever. Sooner or later, the truth catches up, whether you want it or not. Her words struck deep. The following morning, Daniel found himself sitting in his rental car outside the graveyard on the edge of town. The note Emily had given him, the one with Rebecca's name, lay folded on the dashboard. For hours he hadn't moved, just stared at the gates. Finally, he stepped out. His shoes crunched on gravel as he walked through rows of headstones. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds, as if the earth itself held its breath. And then he saw it. Rebecca Cole. Not a voicemail, not a tabloid headline, not a phantom in his dreams. A grave, simple and unadorned, marked with the name of the woman who had once been his entire world. Daniel dropped to his knees, his chest split open. "She's gone," he whispered. Emily stood a few steps behind, her hand pressed against her mouth. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said softly. She passed last year." Cancer Daniel bowed his head, tears finally breaking through. His entire exile, every mile he had run, every disguise he had worn, it had all been pointless. The woman he thought he was protecting, hiding from, proving himself for, was gone. Emily knelt beside him. Her hand rested lightly on his shoulder. "She left something for you," she said. "That's why I wrote the note. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore." From her bag, Emily pulled out a small envelope, yellowed at the edges. Daniel's hands trembled as he took it. Inside was a single sheet of paper in Rebecca's handwriting. "Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I want you to know I forgave you long ago. Not for me, but for you. You don't deserve to be haunted forever. Live your life. Be more than your mistakes. Find someone who sees you, not the money, not the scandal, not the man who disappeared. You." Daniel clutched the letter to his chest, his tears soaking the paper. For the first time, he wasn't running. He was simply broken. That night, he and Emily sat on the hood of the car overlooking the valley. The town lights flickered below like scattered stars. "Funny thing," Emily said quietly. "You came in pretending to be nobody, and I thought you were hiding. But maybe that's who you really wanted to be. Just a man, not a billionaire." Daniel chuckled bitterly. "And what am I now?" Emily turned to him. Her eyes were tired but warm. "You're a man with a choice." The words lingered in the cool night. He thought of Rebecca's letter, of Emily's courage, of the years he had wasted being a ghost. A choice. For the first time, Daniel realized the story wasn't finished. It didn't end with wealth, or scandal, or grief. It ended when he decided it did. He looked at Emily, really looked, not as the waitress who had outsmarted him, not as the girl who knew too much, but as someone who had seen his pain and hadn't turned away. "Stay in this town," she said, as if reading his thoughts. "Start over. You don't have to be Daniel Cole, billionaire. You can just be Daniel." He smiled faintly. "And you?" "What about you?" Emily shrugged. "I'll still be here, slinging steaks and pouring coffee, but at least I won't be the only one carrying secrets anymore." The silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, but heavy with possibility. For the first time in years, Daniel felt something like hope. But just as he leaned back to breathe in the night air, his phone buzzed again. Another call. Another unknown number. Daniel hesitated. Emily tilted her head. "You going to answer this one?" He stared at the screen, the glow casting shadows on his face. This time, the message wasn't Rebecca. It wasn't anyone from his past. It was one word in all caps from an unlisted number. "Run." Daniel's breath caught. He turned to Emily, the blood draining from his face. "Someone knows," he whispered. "Someone still knows." And in that moment, the quiet town around them didn't feel safe anymore. Not for him, not for her. The story wasn't over, not even close.